Schwerer Gustav, English, Heavy Gustav, was a German 80 cm, 31.5 inches, railway gun. It was developed in the late 1930s by Krupp in Darlowo, then Rügenwalde, as siege artillery for the explicit purpose of destroying the main forts of the French Maginot Line, the strongest fortifications in existence at the time. The fully assembled gun weighed nearly 1,350 tons, and could fire shells weighing 7 tons to a range of 47 kilometers, 29 miles. The gun was designed in preparation for the Battle of France, but was not ready for action when the battle began, and in any case the Wehrmacht's blitzkrieg offensive through Belgium rapidly outflanked and isolated the Maginot Line's static defences, eventually forcing the French to surrender and making their destruction unnecessary. Gustav was later deployed in the Soviet Union during the Battle of Sevastopol, part of Operation Barbarossa, where among other things, it destroyed a munitions depot located roughly 30 meters below ground level. The gun was moved to Leningrad, and may have been intended to be used in the Warsaw Uprising like other German heavy siege pieces, but the rebellion was crushed before it could be prepared to fire. Gustav was destroyed by the Germans near the end of the war in 1945 to avoid capture by the Red Army. Schwerer Gustav was the largest caliber rifled weapon ever used in combat and, in terms of overall weight, the heaviest mobile artillery piece ever built. It fired the heaviest shells of any artillery piece. It is surpassed in caliber only by the unused British Mallets mortar and the American Little David bomb testing mortar, both 36-inch, 914 mm. Development. In 1934, the German Army High Command, OKH, commissioned Krupp of Essen to design a gun to destroy the forts of the French Maginot Line that were nearing completion. The gun's shells had to punch through 7 meters of reinforced concrete or 1 full meter of steel armor plate, from beyond the range of French artillery. Krupp engineer Erich Müller calculated that the task would require a weapon with a caliber of around 80 centimeters, firing a projectile weighing 7 tons from a barrel 30 meters long. The weapon would have a weight of over 1,000 tons. The size and weight meant that to be at all movable it would need to be supported on twin sets of railway tracks. In common with smaller railway guns, the only barrel movement on the mount itself would be elevation, traverse being managed by moving the weapon along a curved section of railway line. Krupp prepared plans for calibers of 70 cm, 80 cm, 85 cm, and 1 m. Nothing further happened until March 1936 when, during a visit to Essen, Adolf Hitler inquired as to the giant gun's feasibility. No definite commitment was given by Hitler, but design work began on an 80 cm model. The resulting plans were completed in early 1937 and approved. Fabrication of the first gun started in mid-1937. Technical complications in the forging of such massive pieces of steel made it apparent that the original completion date of early 1940 could not be met. Krupp built a test model in late 1939 and sent it to the Hillersleben firing range for testing. Penetration was tested on this occasion. Firing at high elevation, the 7.1-ton shell was able to penetrate the specified 7 meters of concrete and the 1 meter armor plate. When the tests were completed in mid-1940 the complex carriage was further developed. Alfred Krupp, after whose father the gun was named, personally hosted Hitler at the Rügenwalde proving ground during the formal acceptance trials of the Gustav gun in early 1941. 2 guns were ordered. The first round was test-fired from the commissioned gun barrel on September 10, 1941 from a makeshift gun carriage on the Hillersleben firing range. In November 1941, the barrel was taken to Rügenwalde, now Darlowo, Poland, where 8 further firing tests were carried out using the 7,100 kg armor-piercing AP, shell out to a range of 37,210 meters. In combat, the gun was mounted on a specially designed chassis, supported by 8 bogies on 2 parallel sets of railway tracks. Each of the bogies had 5 axles, giving a total of 40 axles, 80 wheels. Krupp christened the gun Schwerer Gustav, Heavy Gustav, after the senior director of the firm, Gustav Krupp von Bohlen und Halbach. The gun could fire a heavy concrete piercing shell and a lighter high explosive shell. An extremely long-range rocket projectile was also planned with a range of 150 kilometers, that would require the barrel being extended to 84 meters. In keeping with the tradition of the Krupp Company, no payment was asked for the first gun. They charged 7 million Reichsmark for the second gun Dora, named after the senior engineer's wife. History. Schwerer Gustav. In February 1942, Heavy Artillery Unit, E. 672 reorganized and went on the march, and Schwerer Gustav began its long ride to the Crimea. The train carrying the gun was of 25 cars, a total length of 1.5 kilometers, 0.9 miles. The gun reached the Perico Isthmus in early March 1942, where it was held until early April. The Germans built a special railway spur line to the Simferopol-Sevastopol Railway 16 kilometers, 9.9 miles, north of the target. At the end of the spur, they built 4 semicircular tracks especially for the Gustav to traverse. Outer tracks were required for the cranes that assembled Gustav. The Siege of Sevastopol was the gun's first combat test. 4,000 men and 5 weeks were needed to get the gun in firing position, 500 men were needed to fire it. Installation began in early May, and by June 5 the gun was ready to fire. The following targets were engaged. June 5. Coastal guns at a range of 25,000 m8 shells fired. Fort Stalin. 6 shells fired. June 6. Fort Molotov. 7 shells fired. White Cliff, also known as Ammunition Mountain, an undersea ammunition magazine in Severnaya, Northern Bay. The magazine was sited 30 meters under the sea with at least 10 meters of concrete protection. After 9 shells were fired, the magazine was ruined and one of the boats in the bay sunk. June 7. Firing in support of an infantry attack on Südwest Spitze, an outlying fortification. 7 shells fired. June 11. Fort Siberia knocked out of action. 5 shells fired. June 17. Maxim Gorky fortresses bombarded. Maxim Gorky 1 knocked out of action, Maxim Gorky 2 damaged. 5 shells fired. By the end of the siege on July 4 the city of Sevastopol lay in ruins, and 30,000 tons of artillery ammunition had been fired. Gustav had fired 48 rounds and worn out its original barrel, which had already fired around 250 rounds during testing and development. The gun was fitted with the spare barrel and the original was sent back to Krupp's factory in Essen for relining. The gun was then dismantled and moved to the northern part of the Eastern Front, where an attack was planned on Leningrad. The gun was placed 30 kilometers, 18.6 miles, from the city near the railway station of Tatizi. The gun was fully operational when the attack was cancelled. The gun then spent the winter of 1942-43 near Leningrad. Dora. Dora was the second gun produced. It was deployed briefly against Stalingrad, where the gun arrived at its emplacement 15 kilometers, 9.3 miles, to the west of the city sometime in mid-August 1942. It was ready to fire on September 13. It was withdrawn when Soviet encirclement threatened. When the Germans began their long retreat they took Dora with them. Langer Gustav. The Langer Gustav was a long cannon with 52 cm, 20.5 in, caliber and a 43-meter barrel. It was intended to fire super long-range rocket projectiles weighing 680 kilograms to a range of 190 kilometers, 118 miles. This gave it the range to hit London from Calais, France. It was never completed after being damaged during construction by one of the many RAF bombing raids on Essen. Landkreutzer P-1500 Monster project. The Monster was to be a 1,500-ton mobile, self-propelled platform for an 80 cm gun, along with two 15 cm SFH-18 heavy howitzers, and multiple MG-151 autocannons normally used on combat aircraft. It was deemed impractical, and in 1943 was cancelled by Albert Speer. It never left the drawing board and no progress was made. It would have surpassed the Panzer VIII Maus, heaviest tank ever built, and the Landkreuzer P1000 Rat, never built, in weight and size. Post-war whereabouts. On April 14, 1945, one day before the arrival of U.S. troops, Schwerer Gustav was destroyed to prevent its capture. On April 22, 1945, its ruins were discovered in a forest 15 kilometers, 9.3 miles, north of Auerbach and about 50 kilometers, 31 miles, southwest of Chemnitz. In summer 1945 Schwerer Gustav was studied by Soviet specialists and in autumn of the same year was transferred to Merseburg, where the Soviets were gathering German military material. Thereafter, the trail of the gun was lost. In March 1945, Dora was transferred to Grafenwohr and was blown up there on April 19, 1945. It was discovered by American troops sometime after the discovery of Schwerer Gustav. The debris was scrapped in the 1950s. Part of the third, 52 cm, gun was found after the war in the Krupp production facilities in Essen. The world's largest Dora ensemble is located in the Military History Museum of the Bundeswehr in Dresden. Type railway gun. Place of origin Nazi Germany. Service history. In service 1941-45. Used by Wehrmacht. Wars World War II. Production history. Designer Krupp. Designed 1934. Manufacturer Krupp. Unit cost 7 million Reichsmark. Produced 1941. No built 2. Specifications. Weight 1,350 tons, 1,490 short tons, 1,330 long tons. Length 47.3 meters, 155 feet 2 in. Barrel length 32.5 meters, 106 feet 8 in, L/40.6. Width 7.1 meters, 23 feet 4 in. Height 11.6 meters, 38 feet 1 in. Crew 250 to assemble the gun in 3 days, 54 hours, 2,500 to lay track and dig embankments. 2 flak battalions to protect the gun from air attack. Caliber 80 cm, 31 in. Elevation max of 48 degrees. Rate of fire 1 round every 30 to 45 minutes or typically 14 rounds a day. Muzzle velocity 820 m/s, 2,700 feet/s, he. 720 m/s, 2,400 feet/s, AP. Effective firing range about 39,000 meters, 43,000 yd. Maximum firing range 47,000 meters, 51,000 yd, he. 38,000 meters, 42,000 yd, AP.
Please subscribe and thanks for watching.